December 1939. A Soviet patrol moves through a frozen Finnish forest. 15 men, heavily armed, confident. The temperature is minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to freeze your breath solid. Then, crack. One soldier drops, the others freeze. Another shot, another body in the snow. Panic. They scatter. Doesn't matter. 7 minutes later, the entire patrol is dead. The killer? Lying in a hole 150 meters away, 5 foot 3 inches tall, holding a rifle with no scope. And he just broke his personal record. By the end of that single day, December 21st, 1939, he would kill 25 Soviet soldiers. In just 100 days of combat, this man would kill over 500 enemy soldiers, more than any sniper in history. The Russians called him Belaya Smert, the White Death, and what happened to him is almost impossible to believe. His name was Simo Häyhä, born in 1905 in a tiny farming village near the Russian border. Second youngest of 8 kids, quiet, shy, unremarkable. He grew up hunting in the brutal Finnish wilderness. Foxes mostly, small, fast, nearly impossible to hit. But Simo never missed. By 17, he was winning every shooting competition in his region. His house was filled with trophies. In one contest, he hit a target the size of a dinner plate from 150 meters away, 6 times in 60 seconds, with a bolt-action rifle, loading each round by hand. When asked years later how he became such a good shot, Simo gave a one-word answer: practice. After his mandatory military service, Simo went back to farming. That was the plan: live quietly, hunt, farm, stay out of the way. Then, on November 30th, 1939, everything changed. Joseph Stalin, the Soviet dictator, had been eyeing Finland for years. He wanted territory, he wanted control, and he thought it would be easy. On that November morning, without warning, without a declaration of war, the Soviet Union invaded Finland. The numbers were absurd. Soviet Army, 750,000 soldiers, 6,000 tanks, 3,000 aircraft. Finnish Army, 300,000 soldiers, a handful of tanks, about 100 planes. Stalin told his generals they'd be home for Christmas. He gave them a month. The Soviets began bombing Finnish cities immediately. Civilian targets, homes, schools, hospitals. Soviet Foreign Minister Vyacheslav Molotov claimed they weren't dropping bombs at all. No, according to Soviet propaganda, they were delivering food packages to their Finnish neighbors. The Finns, demonstrating a dark sense of humor while being shelled to pieces, started calling the Soviet bombs Molotov bread baskets. And when Soviet tanks rolled across the border shortly after, the Finns threw improvised bottle-based firebombs at them. They called these weapons Molotov cocktails, a drink to go with the food Molotov had so kindly sent them. But Stalin made one catastrophic mistake. He underestimated the Finns. Because this wasn't just an invasion, this was an attack on Finland's home, their freedom, their survival. Every Finnish man who could hold a rifle answered the call, including 34-year-old farmer Simo Häyhä. Simo was assigned to the 6th Company, Infantry Regiment 34, the Kola front, one of the deadliest sectors of the entire war. At Kola, 32 Finnish soldiers, including Simo, would hold off 4,000 Soviet troops for the entire winter. The winter of 1939 to 1940 wasn't just cold. It was one of the worst winters in modern history. Snow piled 6 feet deep. Temperatures dropped to minus 40 degrees Celsius. That's minus 40 Fahrenheit, the point where Celsius and Fahrenheit meet. Cold enough that metal burns your skin. Your breath freezes in mid-air. Daylight lasted maybe 4 hours. The Soviets were dressed in dark uniforms, no winter camouflage. They marched down roads in neat columns because that's what their training told them to do. The Finns? They knew better. Dressed in pure white camouflage, Finnish soldiers on skis would appear out of nowhere, strike like ghosts, and vanish back into the forest. Hit and run, ambush, disappear. The Soviets called it ghost warfare. And Simo Häyhä was about to become the most terrifying ghost of all. Simo brought his old hunting rifle from home, a Finnish M28-30. No fancy equipment, just iron sights. The basic metal notches built into the gun. His fellow snipers used telescopic scopes, magnified lenses, the latest technology. Simo refused. Why? 3 reasons. 1. Scopes reflect sunlight. One glint and you're dead. 2. Scopes fog up in extreme cold. Useless. 3. Using a scope means lifting your head higher. Bigger target. Simo only used what he trusted, what he'd trained with his entire life. Iron sights. But his methods went even further. Before dawn, Simo would dig a shallow pit in the snow, barely visible. He'd build snowbanks around his position, pack the snow down tight, then pour water over it, freezing it into solid ice. This was genius. The first shot from any rifle kicks up a cloud of snow, a massive giveaway. But ice? Nothing. No cloud, no reveal. Pure invisibility. He'd dress in layers, keep bread and sugar in his pockets for energy. And here's the most insane part. He would pack snow into his mouth. Why? So his breath wouldn't steam in the frozen air. Even the vapor from breathing could give away his position. He was invisible, a ghost in white, waiting. The Soviets had no idea what was about to hit them. His first major target, a Soviet sniper who'd been killing Finnish officers for days. Simo inserted before dawn, built his ice wall, then waited, motionless, all day. Snow packed in his mouth, barely breathing. Hours passed. The sun started setting behind him. Then, a glint. Sunlight reflecting off an enemy scope. But Simo didn't move. He just watched, waited. The sun kept dropping, getting darker. 15 minutes until pure darkness. Then the Soviet sniper just stood up, like his shift was over, started walking back to camp. One shot, straight through the head. The guy never knew what hit him. Word spread fast after that. By his first week, Simo had 51 confirmed kills in 3 days. His commanders didn't believe it. They thought he was lying. So they assigned an official observer to follow him and verify every single kill. The observer watched in horror. Simo wasn't lying. If anything, he was being modest. But Simo took no pleasure in any of it. Years later, in a private memoir he'd write for himself, never intending to publish it, he'd call it his Book of Sins, a detailed accounting of every man who died by his hand. Over 500 names. He wasn't doing this for glory. He was doing it because invaders were on his land, and the moment they left, he'd stop. By mid-December, the story started spreading. Finnish soldiers whispered about the farmer with the iron sights who never missed. Soviet soldiers started finding entire patrols dead in the snow, killed by a sniper they never saw. The Russians gave him a nickname, Belaya Smert, the White Death. On December 21st, 1939, Simo achieved something that still stands as a record. 25 confirmed kills in a single day. That's one kill approximately every 9 to 10 minutes during daylight hours. And he was just getting started. The Soviets realized they had a problem. One man was terrorizing their entire front line. Soldiers were terrified to leave cover. Morale was collapsing. Stalin's commanders decided the White Death must die. They tried everything. Counter-sniper teams, elite Soviet marksmen sent specifically to kill Simo. He identified them by their positions and eliminated them first, one by one. Artillery strikes. They carpet-bombed entire sections of forest where they thought he might be hiding. Simo would just move to a new position and keep killing. Heavy machine gun fire, hoping to flush him out or get lucky. Nothing worked. One Soviet sniper was considered one of their absolute best. Highly trained, well-equipped. Sent with one mission: kill the White Death. Simo was in position when he realized he was being hunted. He spotted the Soviet sniper trying to find him. One shot, through the face, from over 400 meters away. That's over 1,300 feet. The Soviet sniper never knew what hit him. Entire units, 30, 40, 50 men, were deployed with one objective: find and kill Simo Häyhä. They all failed. For 3 months, Simo was untouchable. Finnish newspapers picked up the story. Simo became a national hero. They called him Taika Ampuha, the magic shooter. Propaganda posters showed a ghostly figure in white, hunting Russians in the snow. The legend grew with every passing day. Even the Finnish High Command heard about him. They wanted to honor him, so they presented him with a gift: a brand new, custom-built sniper rifle. State-of-the-art, beautiful. Simo thanked them politely. Then he went back to using his old hunting rifle. It's what he knew. It's what worked. But here's where it gets insane. The Soviets stopped sending men into areas where they knew the White Death operated. So, Simo decided to bring the war to them. He'd lead squads on skis miles behind enemy lines, at night, to where the Russians thought they were safe. Soviet soldiers would be sitting around massive bonfires, eating, drinking, relaxing after a long day. Simo and his men would ski to within 100 meters, dismount, and low crawl right up on them. Then they'd pop up with submachine guns and slaughter everyone. Afterwards, steal all their weapons, ammo, and food, then vanish back into the darkness. Guerrilla warfare on ice. By early March 1940, Simo's confirmed kill count stood at over 500. Some estimates put it higher. 542 confirmed kills with his rifle, plus 200 more with his submachine gun. To put that in perspective, Chris Kyle, the most famous American sniper in recent history, subject of the film American Sniper, had 160 confirmed kills across 4 tours in Iraq, 10 years as a Navy SEAL. Vasily Zaitsev, the legendary Soviet sniper, hero of the Soviet Union, played by Jude Law in Enemy at the Gates, had 242 confirmed kills during World War II. Simo achieved 505 plus confirmed kills with his rifle alone in 98 days. Not years, not decades, 3 months. Add the 200 plus submachine gun kills, that's over 700 dead Soviet soldiers, killed by one Finnish farmer in less than 100 days. No one in history, before or since, has matched that number. But on March 6, 1940, Simo's luck finally ran out. March 1940. The Russians launched a massive final offensive, wave after wave of soldiers. Simo wasn't at his ice wall with his rifle. There were too many. He was on the front line with his submachine gun, leading men into battle. Then, on March 6, 1940, at 2 p.m., just 7 days before the war would end, Simo felt what he later described as a suppressed bang inside his mouth. Immediately, his mouth filled with bone fragments and blood. Then everything went black. A Soviet soldier had caught sight of him and fired. The round that hit Simo wasn't a normal bullet. It was an explosive round, the kind banned by international law since the 1800s, the kind that detonates on impact. It struck Simo in the lower left jaw, and it exploded. The damage was catastrophic. The bullet tore through the top of his lip, shredded his left cheek, and blew apart his upper and lower jaw. Witnesses said half his face was gone. Simo collapsed, unconscious, bleeding, silent. When the shooting stopped, Finnish soldiers swept the area looking for their wounded. They found Simo lying motionless in the snow. No pulse they could detect. Face destroyed. Medics performed triage, sorting the wounded into categories: those who needed immediate transport, those who could wait, and expectant, soldiers who were dead or would die before reaching the hospital, the ones they wouldn't waste truck space on. Simo was thrown into the expectant pile. Following protocol, they placed his body with the other fallen soldiers. A mass grave waiting to happen. But then something happened. One of the soldiers was walking past the pile of corpses when he saw it. Simo's foot was twitching. They pulled him off the pile. He was alive. Barely, but alive. They rushed him to a field hospital. Medics worked frantically. The damage was almost beyond repair. His upper jaw, gone. Most of his lower jaw, shattered. Left cheek, blown apart. He was placed in a coma. Doctors didn't think he'd survive the night. Back in Finland, newspapers reported the news. Simo is dead. For 7 days, Simo lay unconscious, his face wrapped in bandages, barely breathing. March 7th, day 1, no change. March 8th, day 2, still nothing. March 9th, 10th, 11th, the days passed. Then, on March 13th, 1940, the exact day peace was declared between Finland and the Soviet Union, Simo Häyhä opened his eyes. He'd been in a coma for a week. The Winter War was over. A nurse brought him a newspaper. The headline read about the peace treaty, but there was another story on the page. His own obituary. Simo read about his own death. Then, in typical fashion, he wrote a letter to the newspaper asking them to print a correction. But his ordeal was just beginning. Simo spent the next 14 months in a hospital bed. He underwent 26 surgical operations. They had to reconstruct his face piece by piece. Doctors took bone from his hip and grafted it to build him a new jaw. The pain was constant. His face would be permanently disfigured, the scars visible for the rest of his life. His speech was damaged and never fully recovered. But Field Marshal Carl Gustaf Emil Mannerheim, the commander of Finland's entire military, personally promoted Simo from corporal to second lieutenant. It was the largest rank jump in Finnish military history. Simo also received Medal of Liberty, First and Second Class Cross of Liberty, Third and Fourth Class Cross of Kola, silver version, number 4, only 7 made of silver, and multiple other medals. He was a national hero, the man who stood against an empire. But when the Continuation War started in 1941, Finland's next conflict with Russia, Simo wanted to serve again. The military said no. His injuries were too severe. Back home, not everyone celebrated what Simo had done. Some Finnish communists, people who sympathized with the Soviet Union, viewed him as a villain. He started receiving anonymous hate mail. Then came the death threats. From the people he'd fought to protect. His home village was now Soviet territory, lost in the peace agreement. He couldn't go back. The Finnish government gave him a new farm in 1961 in a place called Valkjärvi, meaning White Lake. The name felt appropriate for the White Death. But Simo never wanted to be called that. He never wanted the fame or the glory. He just wanted what he'd always wanted: to be left alone, to farm, to hunt, to live in peace. Simo never married, never had children. He lived alone, preferring the company of animals to people. Friends said he talked more to his hunting dog than to humans. The visible scars on his face made him recognizable, so he avoided crowds, avoided attention. But he found peace in the wilderness he loved. He became a moose hunter and dog breeder, successful at both. He even went on hunting trips with the president of Finland. The warrior had returned to being a hunter. For decades, Simo lived quietly. He didn't talk about the war, didn't boast, didn't seek fame. In 1998, at age 92, a journalist asked him the question everyone wanted to know: "How did you become such a good sniper?" Simo's answer: practice. In December 2001, just before his 96th birthday, another journalist asked if he felt remorse for killing so many people. Simo replied, "I did what I was told to do, as well as I could. There would be no Finland unless everyone had done the same. No hatred, no malice, just duty." He defended his home against invaders, and the moment they left, he stopped. It was that simple. On April 1st, 2002, in a war veterans nursing home in Hamina, Finland, Simo Häyhä passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was 96 years old. He was buried in Ruokolahti, the land he'd fought to defend. Today, there's a museum dedicated to Simo Häyhä in Finland: his rifle, his gear, his story. In 2004, Finnish television held a poll: the 100 greatest Finns of all time. Simo Häyhä ranked 74th. Military snipers around the world still study his tactics. Heavy metal bands have written songs about him. His legend has grown far beyond Finland's borders. But here's the final truth. The Soviet Union fell in 1991. Simo died in 2002. He outlived the entire country he went to war with. The White Death. Belaya Smert. The deadliest sniper in history. A 5'3" farmer who became death itself, then went back to hunting moose and living quietly for 62 more years. The proof that one person defending their home can change the course of a war. Finland remembers, Russia remembers, and so should we.